Okay, well, thank you for coming, and as Richard said, we'll be done at 12:40 today. But I want to introduce our panelists, if I may, and so our first will be Art Alva. Art. And then we have Paul Gonzalez, Bob Johnson, one of our faculty members, Bob Lepper, our campus security system, and Everett Morgan. Okay? And what I'd like them to do right now is just starting with Bob, if I might, we'll just go this way, is I'd like to just each of you to spend a few minutes talking about yourself, your mental attitude in Vietnam, and some of the experiences you went through. We're going to have questions as well, but right now let's just open up with your general impressions of being a Vietnam vet. And you might want to move the microphone to him.
I got orders from the United States Navy in mid-1967 to report to the USS Kearsarge, an aircraft carrier out of Long Beach, California. We were going to be deployed to the Tonkin Gulf off the north coast of Vietnam. The first 2 years of my service, I was stationed at North Island at the Naval Air Station, and my job was to send GIs, SEALs, UDT folks, the different squadrons over to Vietnam. And then in '67, I got to see what it was really like when I reported aboard the Kearsarge. At that time, it was just starting to get underway as far as I was involved. We were flying a lot of sorties over North Vietnam. We were doing both sorties as well as anti-submarine warfare identifications. There was a lot of Soviet and Chinese submarines working that area. We never received any attacks, but we knew they were there, and we were in general quarters a great deal of the time. As far as what it was like for me, it was just, you just knew it could happen at any time, and you just prepared yourself to do what you were trained to do. I didn't see any physical action. Mine was aviation fuels and getting aircraft ready to continue their sorties. I did that for 2 years until I was separated. Mainly, I just did what I was told to the best of my ability.
Okay, thanks. Thank you, Bob. Bob?
I joined the military in the end of 1966, went through basic training, advanced weapons training, jump school, and deployed to Vietnam with the 101st Airborne. I stayed in Vietnam for the first tour, did a second extension and a third extension until I discharged in the end of 1969. During that time it was, they called it airborne infantry. I don't know what it was. It was just kind of a fiasco, but we were in the field all the time from Chu Lai to Da Nang and Cambodia and Laos when American troops weren't there. I got shot the first time on my 19th birthday in Laos, which made it a little strange since Americans weren't there. Let me see, all the regular kind of medal stuff that you get, and a bunch of major campaigns since I was there for kind of a longer period of time. All those things just kind of piled up. Discharged honorably at the end of 1969.
Okay, thank you, Bob. And Bob, you were wounded once or more than once?
3 times.
Three times. Okay.
I was drafted in 1966 in April, and most of the young people here that around Porterville area, if you was between the age of 18 and about 25, you got a draft notice. So as soon as I got my draft notice, I went down and joined the Marine Corps. And I went through basic training in the MCRD San Diego. Did my training here, and lo and behold, about 3.5 months later, I'm on a plane to South Vietnam. I served 8.5 months there. I was with my company, 3rd Battalion, 1st Marines. I was infantry, and I'll get a little emotional, so I'll catch myself here in a minute. I spent 8.5 months in country. I was wounded 3 times, and I've been living with it ever since. And we could have done without it. Okay.
Thank you.
drafted, but I extended my tour for another year because when you get drafted, you put you anywhere you want. They need you, so I just figured I would just, they guaranteed me a school of my choice, so I took it and I wound up with Army Aviation and helicopter maintenance on Cobra gunships and UA gunships. Technically, I'm only 11 months over there instead of 12 because I came on and to leave. My mom passed away in the middle of my tour, so I had to go back to finish my tour. But on paper, it's a whole year. So it seems like a long year for some people, and others shorter. But it depends on what you did too. So came home in July '69, and I would have extended my tour over there to let me know ahead of time, but for 6 months I could have got out, 9 months early out, but nobody told me about it, so I wish I could have done it, but it was too late then, so, but it really is.
Okay, thank you. Paul?
Howdy, my name's Paul. I was in Vietnam for 14 months. I got drafted also in around April, and I came home in June. I extended 55 days so I could get an early out. I was basic training in AIT, and then I went for Vietnam, came home. I wanted to come home and stay home. If he came home with less than 3 months, he'd keep an early out, so I extended it 55 days. I didn't know that on the day that I extended it, they were going to send me over to Cambodia. If I'd have known that, I probably never would have extended. I got into, I was a tanker. I went in first as a gunner, then I was a loader. Then I talked to one of my friends, and he told me that the safest place in the tank was to be a driver. So I drove for over a year. I got into about 24 firefights. 24 firefights meaning that either they ran or we ran. I think we ran twice. Several people got killed. Because you've seen the movies, you probably ever noticed that a good majority of people got killed by friendly fire. I think I witnessed about 11 of them getting wounded or some of them get killed by friendly fire. 13 people that I've seen actually got killed by the enemy. And as far as how did you feel when you were there? Basically, while you were there as a military person, you had to numb yourself in order to stay alive. If you try and think of what's happening around you, you're gonna get in trouble. So it's like being locked up in jail. You gotta act tough and you gotta feel tough in order to prove to the enemy that you're gonna survive. And luckily I did. And the question is, would I do it again? Probably I would ask a lot of questions first. And of course I didn't have a choice back in those days. I got drafted. And I'm pretty sure that if anything happened to our country, that the majority of us would volunteer or go for it. That's about it.
Okay, thanks, Paul. Vietnam is a particularly interesting war because of the criticism that the soldiers received when they were overseas from the American public here. And that caused a lot of tension with the soldiers and of course the protests, the anti-war protests here, the card burnings, the draft card burnings, etc. So Paul, let's just start with you again. Could you just respond to that, what you thought about the Americans at home, criticizing you for what you did, the number of firefights you got in? Each of you maybe just talk about that for a moment.
Well, it was interesting because when I came home, I heard that a lot of people were getting, I had some people there actually didn't like the idea that I was over there. And I did hear, situations where some people would actually be spit at because they were, because they had been over there. We call us child killers. Of course, they didn't do it to me, because I was pretty short-tempered. Came back, I think I got about 18 fights in 1 year. That's because I didn't come back, the same. It was a crazy war, and it took me about 2 years to get over my nightmares, whatever. Now, I'm 60% disabled from post-traumatic syndrome, but I feel a lot better now that I'm older. Of course, I'm home too. But I think it was basically, I just found out just the other day that the reason that the people from South Vietnam, they got killed is because when we left, we didn't give the people any more ammunition or whatever to fight to defend themselves. So a lot of guys that were in the military or in the South, they were just taking their clothes and throwing them away and just wearing shorts. Of course, they knew that they were military men anyway. They come to kill them anyway. So I think it was a rotten war to begin with. And we really weren't put there to win. We were just put there to, I don't know what the hell we were there for. But a war is a war. That means you go in there and you kick the hell out of everybody and go where the hell they want to. But when you're limited, you can't cross this border and they can, it really puts, straight on a person. And being there because you had to go was something else. I mean, if it was anything like it is today where you get drafted, you keep going back and forth, I think it'd be rough. A lot of people ran, but some people, they had a place to go. I didn't want to go to the place, I figured stay here and take it like a man.
How did you feel about the criticism while you were there? Being wounded 3 times.
Really, I didn't pay a whole lot of attention to it. I just went there and did my job like I was supposed to, what they wanted me to do. Still, I guess you might say it was wrong to bring the draft cards, for being a draft dodger, and that's one thing I would never have done, is become a draft dodger, because my brothers have served in the military. My two older brothers already passed away, and I have one more brother, I live with him in Sanborn. My dad was my parents came from Mexico, and my dad said if you have to serve your country, you better serve it with pride. So when he passed away, he died a very proud man. And I can say that he did pass away, a very proud man. And he wrote it in the newspaper when he used to be the Wood Lake Echo. And he said draft cards and all this demonstrations, it's a bunch of foolishness. And, there's some people can agree with and some will disagree. So.
Okay, thank you. Eric? Pass that to Bob, please.
That's all right, I think I can talk about
All right.
it. It was, I tell you, it's pretty rare to get this many Vietnam veterans in one place to talk about it. It's the hardest generation there is for veterans to get them to say anything about this. We came home, it's like he's talking about, we had all this animosity, people spitting on you, you're a killer, baby killer, rapist. Most of us come back, got a job, went back into society and just forgot about it. Or tried to forget about it, like Paul. If he says it took him a couple years to get over his nightmares, he's a lucky man. Because most of us out there, we still got it. And we don't get rid of it, right, Bob? I took, right here in this college, I came here, I went here 4 nights a week for 4 hours a night to get my degree in this college. And I got up and walked out of several classes on this campus because of the way people felt about the Vietnam War, their opinions they gave on it. I would just stand up and say, hey, if he wasn't there, shut up, I don't have to listen to it. And I would walk out of the class. And I did that several times right here. It's got better over the years, but it's still there. We was the one war when we got home, there was nothing. Guys that go try to get some help, there was nothing. Just like a lost bunch of puppies. And it took quite a few years, right? I say in the last 5 to 10 years, they finally starting to recognize the Vietnam veteran. Where, hey, we can go to the VA, we get treated, we get the things that everybody else got. But for many, many years, it was just, you are that war veteran from Vietnam, you guys are a bunch of crazies. That's the stigmatism we live with. And like I say, it's still there somewhat, but in fact, 4 years ago, it's the first time somebody came up to me and said, hey, thank you for serving. 4 years ago. And I served there in 1966, 67. So that's what the mentality was of that war in this country. I couldn't believe when I was in country, what I was hearing, that this country was doing. And I would have probably brought my unit over here to take care of that stuff. But guarantee I would volunteer. And these people wouldn't want to see them coming. And that's, like I say, and today, and I'll tell you something else. When I got back, it took till I was maybe 58 years old, Bob. They finally put me into, I decided, hey, I need some help. Prior to that, there was no help. And the first guy that I seen was this guy sitting right here. He was a counselor in a group they put me in for PTSD. And I'm still with that group. And it's been 5 years.
Good. Good. And Bob? Your reactions to what was going on out there while you were there being wounded 3 times?
I don't know what to call it other than it's just an absolute freak show. Everybody is doing absolutely the best they can, and it's not fighting for a cause or a country, it's just staying alive. And for me, the reason was for no great cause. It was just because the people I was with, I would do everything possible to do the best I could so they could stay alive. And I think Everett and I both were in these kind of units where huge numbers of people were killed. It wasn't just a couple. Ours was almost a 40% in the unit I was in. So for me, the idea of these wonderful causes and why we were fighting, it just wasn't there. It was just basic survival and kill first. And that was real difficult because that was not what I was brought up. And when I went, both my granddads who were First World War vets, and my dad and 5 uncles who were all combat Second War vets, told me, you don't have to do this. And I told them, I know, but I got to. I was here at Porterville College, and one of my closer friends from Porterville High School, we buried him. And I could not stay in classes here. It bothered me so bad. So I thought, well, I've got to go do this. This is what you do. This is what my family's always done. So for me, there was absolutely no question this is what you did. Our country was at war. And it only took the first major firefight when I went out to join my unit, and we went on we were moving areas, and it was just this fiasco. I didn't know what the hell was going on, and a bunch of people were getting messed up. And it was my first day, and I'm going, oh my God, how do you do this for a year? Then luckily I found out, well, this doesn't happen all the time, but my first joining the unit was just a freak show. And it spooked the heck out of me. When I came back, I thought, you know what, I'm gonna be an anti-war activist, and young people need to know how this works. So I enrolled back at Porterville College and was on a panel, an anti-war panel, and had students and instructors here at the time who are recently retired that I've never forgiven what they said to me at that time. And I never will forgive them. Because it hurt me so badly, I left and went to Canada. You know what? If these chicken shits are gonna treat me this way when I did my best, I don't even wanna be part of this community or this part of the world. Because what I watched was a whole bunch of young men just doing absolutely their best in a nightmare kind of situation. And the reception was horribly hurtful. And I don't think people even knew how hurtful it was on the anti-war idea in comparison to black people. The way I look at it is somebody that hasn't been in combat has no right to say anything about me and what I've done. The only person that can evaluate that is somebody that was there and in the middle of it. You don't get to evaluate by being an observer. If you're a participant, you can evaluate how well I did, but not an observer. No observer gets to do that because you can't possibly understand how horrendous that is on people. For me, that reception home for myself and then a lot of other men I've talked to was very, very hurtful, as people were hurt so badly. And then to have our own communities shun us when it was so difficult to even feel like you belonged to the community anymore. I think our own attitude damaged a lot of our returning soldiers. And I think we're doing it again. A little bit different, but we're doing it again. That greatly concerns me, how we're treating our veterans now.
Okay. And Bob, you were on the Kearsarge, and so what was their attitude about the sailors on board the ship as you were deploying then with the criticisms aimed at the sailors and the soldiers?
Well, on the ship, while we were deployed, it's kind of the same. I'm just going to echo what all the other guys are saying. You just do your best and make sure that you're taking care of everybody on board. the political thing is kind of an aside, because you're so busy making sure that you're doing everything right and not jeopardizing the men on the ship, that, it just becomes the course of the day. We all talked about political things, but when it came to having general quarters or recoveries and things like that, we just went and did our jobs. When I returned, I avoided wearing my uniform. Our ship was in dry dock, and we had to wear our uniforms off and on the base, but a lot of guys would wear civilian clothes to the parking lots and then change in the parking lots, so we didn't have to put up with the anti-war demonstrators. As far as the demonstrators, I thought of them as punks, personally. That's what I felt about them. It's good to talk, but until they've done it, until they've been away, until they've been scared to death about a ship going down at sea, they have no room to talk about us. We did the very best that we could. When you're in the military, it's pretty much you do what you're told and you try to do it to the very best that you can. I didn't have to go through the same kinds of horrors that these gentlemen did, but I was in there when they took the Pueblo, and when the North Koreans took the Pueblo, we were sent to the Sea of Japan, and the common fear on the ship is we're going to be the first one sunk. It was submarines and MiGs were coming over us all the time. We thought at any time we were going to go into major combat, and naturally we'd be the first one sunk if they could do it. So you just did what you could, and when I got out, I just put it behind me. I said, it's happened, and now I just got to go on with my life, and that's what I did. Went to school, got my degrees, and just put it behind me.
Okay. Before I open up for questions, two quick questions, and you just answer it if you want, or if you choose to, and if you don't, that's fine. It was an invisible war for the American public in many ways, and better said, it was a forgotten war, and these soldiers certainly felt that. But did you ever do anything other than, how did you cope in the end? Did you turn to anything to cope with this war in the end, and in terms of drugs or alcohol? I mean, did you, because a lot of Vietnam vets have done that.
I think alcoholism. A lot of people plumb up into the late 70s. I am an alcoholic. I haven't taken a drink since 1979 because it got to the point where this is the one thing I couldn't control. And I'm a person, if I can't get some control on it, I'm going to have to eventually leave it alone. So a lot of veterans came home, they went to this alcoholism, they went to drugs. There's still a lot of them out there today on these. And statistics shows right now, Vietnam vets, there's the number, well, there was 58,000 that killed in Vietnam. There's that many or more now that has committed suicide.
Mm-hmm.
That's some bad statistics. And that's about it right there. You can.
Very good.
But everybody had something they turned to.
Okay. And then, anyone else want to comment on that, Bob, or Paul?
For myself, it was the level of distress and the level of nightmares. I had no choice but drugs and alcohol, because I had to rest sometimes, because when I didn't rest, I got real crazy. And when I get too crazy, then the potential for violence was real on the edge. And that very much frightened me, because I didn't want to have any violence anymore in my life. I was just sickened by all the killing. It was either suicide or use these other things to try to get a little rest. And that didn't work. That always backfires. But for me, I was so distressed that it really seemed reasonable to suicide and just be done with it. And at the same time, what seems funny at this point, so many years away, but I remember it clear as a bell, is I couldn't disrespect all the guys that were killed by taking my own life by myself. So it wasn't that I didn't want to, I just could not disrespect all the people that were dead. I carry all the time. They pop into my mind. I will not sleep tonight, just by talking to you and making this stuff clear again. I will be up all night, and there's not a damn thing I can do about it. It doesn't distress me like it did 40 years ago. I thought I was losing my mind then. Now I'm just used to it after over 40 years. This stuff does not go away. It just gets where you do it a little easier. It's not a huge thing. And talking to guys from my unit, the ones that are still alive, because a lot of guys aren't. We're going real fast, abnormally fast. There's not one person that escaped out of our unit. Everybody is messed up in the same way. So it's not because of some defect with individuals. We're not put together well enough to do that kind of stuff with that level of intensity and that level of threat. I don't know if anybody can, and people that say they can, they're mentally ill, so we've got a lot of names for them. This kind of stuff just too much for people to do. And I know everyone here at the table's done as well as they're able. But I would always like to do better, but the idea that's misunderstood is us talking about this hurts us all over again, because we move back to the memories that we worked so hard to try to avoid. I think there's a real misunderstanding of how it works.
Okay. Remind everybody that Porterville at the time in the 1960s per capita lost more soldiers in Vietnam than any other city of its size. So the names over there, Veterans Park, is already a significant number given the size of our city at that time when they were there. Okay, we lost more soldiers than any other city comparable to size in America. Last question before I open up for questions is, have you visited the wall? Have any of you visited the Vietnam Wall? And just very quickly, impressions.
It's a feeling. You know it's there before you ever get there. When I first heard about the wall, the black wall, I thought, oh my God, we don't want no big black rocks sitting out there to honor us, our people. But it's a real experience. And there's a lot of guys that go there that can't go to it. They have to stand back from it. But when you get 58,000 names, okay? I belong to a Vietnam Veterans Club we're working out of Tulare. Well, in '07 we brought the Wall and Hills to Tulare, to the park. For me and most veterans, it's the same feelings as if you go to the real one. It's just there. I love the wall. And I think every veteran should go there, and they should see it. Every Vietnam veteran should go there and experience it. Because it's just there.
Who else has seen the wall? Bob, please?
I've seen the wall, yes.
And your reaction to it?
It's almost spiritual. It is so quiet, and nobody. It's so solemn. It's almost a religious experience, because just to look on people's faces, and you know, they're there to honor those fallen. They're not there to, you know, to besmirch their memories. It's a very solemn, you know, quiet place. The only thing you can hear is the birds in the background. It's amazing. And the things that people leave at the wall, or at the Smithsonian, they even had a big exhibit of just the things that were left, you know, on the wall, whether it be flowers and boots, helmets, camouflage gear. There's just all kinds of things that people leave there in memoriam for them.
Quite moving. Art?
I went there in, it was 93. It was some members of my chapter. I'm a life member of Vietnam Veteran American Chapter 441. We went as a group, and then plus that I knew as a chapter, we went on too. And the president of our chapter, he said, "You guys may be strong men, but when you get over there," he says, "I guarantee you, once you guys are gonna have tears coming out of your eyes." And I have to grew up with one of the kids that was killed over there. And, my brother met him over there in Vietnam too. But they were supposed to get together and have a beer, and they never showed up. And we talked about it later on. And he asked me about it. He said he didn't know. I said, no, he got killed. His name's on that wall. Anyway, we had everybody kind of went on their own and did what they had to do, you know. I looked for a name like that and I saw his name out there. And I couldn't help it, just got to me.
And Paul, did you see the wall?
Yeah, it took me several years to go and see the wall. My wife told me we'll check it out, but I was kind of afraid. It was sort of like, like a Twilight Zone movie. I figured that my name would be up there, so I wanted to go up there and see it. Actually, this year, for
Interesting.
the first time, since I've been in the service, I went to a reunion of all the people that were in 11th Tab up in Santa Clara. And I had a lot of friends that told me, hey man, you ought to go. It's really nice. You can see a bunch of old buddies. But all this time I could never do it. I just wanted to leave everything behind. So I went down there and it was interesting because I met this guy who was in the elevator and he had his tag on. He was in Vietnam same time I was. And he was in the same company I was, same tank and everything. Matter of fact, we sat together, we talked for a while, and then the guy told me that he was in Mike 33, the same tank I was on. So I told him, I was in that tank the same time you were. And he said, well, you must be the one that left a crucifix. I had a crucifix, I put on my speedometer in the tank. You must be the one that left it there. That was me. I thought everything. I thought I was driving, how to survive, and whatever. Matter of fact, when I left Vietnam, about 4 hours later, the same day, my tank got hit with 7 RPGs. This was 7 anti-tank weapons, and they killed my driver. They wounded my gunner. I would have been in the back. I would have been a gunner. I would have been killed for sure. I skipped it by 4 hours. Okay, and this guy, he was a driver, and because I taught him how to drive, he survived. He didn't get injured at all. So I guess he was grateful.
Well, you're grateful.
Yeah,
You're grateful.
I was.
Questions from the audience? Yes.
Question for the gentleman in the middle. I was wondering your first initial reaction when you got your card from the government saying that you had to go fight and being such a young
Like I said, I knew it was coming because, like you said, in this area, there's a lot of people went to the military from Porterville, Woodville, Poplar. This area right here, like I said, if you was 18 years old, between the ages of 18 and 25, you was going to get a draft notice unless you was in college, you was married and had children. I got my draft notice when I was 20 years old. I was already out getting it, but I knew when they started the draft that I was going to get a draft notice. And I think if I hadn't got it pretty quick, I just went ahead and joined up anyway. Because the day I got it, I went, to me, I always knew from day one I was going to be in the Marine Corps. So that just kind of boosted me, and I already had lots of friends over there. So it's kind of like, it's a bummer. When you've been told, hey, we need you, you go do this. And, I hope it never happens again. I hope we never see another draft in the military.
Okay.
But it's looked like we might.
Okay. Another question? Yes?
Hi, I just want to start off by saying thank you to each and one of you for your courage, and it's much appreciated, and your service. But first off, do you see the current war much like what went on in Vietnam, and if so, do you see it winnable?
You can answer that one. I see it. We did it in Korea. We did it in Vietnam, Afghanistan, Pakistan, and we're doing it in Iraq. I personally can see no end to it. We're doing the same thing we've done before. We jumped into, somebody asked for some help for some reason whatsoever, we volunteered our young men to do so. And I don't think there's going to be an end to it. It's going to be something that drags on, just like Korea. We still got people in Korea. And they're still saying the same thing. Hey, why did we do this? We're here, we still holding up our end of the deal, but I don't think it can be a win. There's no winning in war anyway.
Bob, you want to say
In
something?
Afghanistan, they
Oh.
have, it's a civil war over there. And we had a civil war in our country. So I don't want the other countries to get involved. And we're in there not trying to help out the people in their country, but it's not really our business. Over in Vietnam, for example, if you ask the people, what do you want? Do you want communism or do you want to live in democracy? They have no idea what that is. The people over there, they have a country of their own. They have no idea how our country runs. So to be over there to try to help them out, I think is idiotic. We're there.
Another question? One more question? Yes?
I also just want to thank each of you for your service and for welcoming home. Did any of you have family, children when you went over?
You went as a young man without any children.
Yes, I was married, but no children. I turned 21 there, and I was the old man. I was the old man at 21. So that's, you know, like you look around here to college now, you see the age of these people. In 1966, 67, you'd have had that little card in your pocket, and there wouldn't be half of you sitting here, because you're just the right age that's when you was going. I had guys in my squad, 17 years old. They signed waivers to get there. The average age was 18 years old, and most of them just turned 18 and just got beyond the training, and they sent them right over there. So, does any Iraqi veterans in here today? Think you've served? And I heard you had what, 55, 50?
Yep.
Yeah.
50, and
54, I believe.
54. Just to conclude, and then I want to give you time to pick up your cards. We want to thank you, of course, for coming and your service. Robert McNamara was the Secretary of Defense who was responsible in many ways for the leadership of the war and for the troop buildups in the Johnson administration, et cetera, et cetera. He lived to be 91. He died here just not too long ago. But before he died, he wrote a book, and his book was basically trying to apologize for the war in Vietnam. And he tried to apologize for those names on the wall, which in the end he felt had been lost in vain. And it received a lot of criticism from surviving veterans who have said today what they've been saying all along about their feelings. But McNamara tried to write a book and tried to explain away the war. It was not well received, but unlike the names on the wall, he lived to be 91. So thank you again for coming very much.